Welcome to the Starting Over Podcast. I'm your host, Edward Shelton, aka Dark Logos, and this is a show where we look at the strategies, tactics, and mechanics behind the game of heroclix. Alright, fourth attempt. Freaking antivirus wiped out my temporary files, which was holding take 3 of this episode. Alright, so this is take 4. So I apologize again for the delays. Definitely I've left y'all a little bit hungry for some analysis. Alright, so let's get into it. Today we're going to talk about the entities, their impact on the meta, and what we can possibly do about it. First off, I'm just going to say that as it stands now, the entities are probably the apex tech abuse, just for the fact that you're able to get a power and you're able to get a stat mod of your choosing, and they don't have to be from the same grouping. So most of what's going on right now is the use of getting something so you can get power cosmic, or getting something so you have prob or defend or whatever else, and then sort of just whoring that out for the rest of the game. And most people don't think about how that's going to play out in the long run for the game. Definitely from the standpoint, most people haven't studied the entity dials. So as we sort of take some steps forward, let's just sort of do some breakdowns into what one can do to sort of just kick the entities in the figurative gonads. First off, I think that we have to look at one of their biggest weaknesses, and the biggest weaknesses is that when you attach an entity to another figure, they gain that entity's keywords. Thus, meaning any sort of keyword attacks that you can do, such as Senator Kelly or whatnot, would greatly hinder the usefulness of the entities. Because if you're attaching an entity, you're looking at that character to be able to push, and just to be able to say, no, all of you all with cosmic keyword over there can't use your right for willpower, and I will demoralize you from Senator Kelly. So I think that that's the first thing that we have to look at. The second thing that we have to look at is we're getting a stat mod, and we're looking at ways of shutting down stat mods. And so Outsiders is one of those things. White Witch is another. Outsiders does require line of fire and range, but it allows for you to be in a situation where you're able to say, no, you don't get that +1 damage or that +1 defense or anything else that you need right now. Heck, you don't get energy shield deflection. So that can be really killer, definitely considering the fact that people are stacking the resources with the entities. White Witch is just blanket across the board. No mods. You do not get to do that. And it does take a power action, and her power can be outwitted, which does leave you open to some things. But as it stands right now, a lot of folks are looking at playing like an aggro White Witch. So just be on the lookout for that. All right. But yeah. Overall, I do like the Outsiders option. When I really do think about it, it allows for a lot of functionality, just because most teams aren't thinking about stealth as much. But stealth is creeping back in. One other thing that I think that folks are just overlooking in general when you're dealing with the entities is, if you are able to determine on the team what that team needs that entity to do, establish in your head about how many clicks that character is, and then come back and say, like, hey, I need this team needs these clicks on the entity to do X, Y, and Z. And if you're able to just simply knock the character past that, those points, then it creates a situation in which now the entity is not as useful. So that's another element, just to consider overall. When we look at most of the the origin teams, the one thing I do notice is more of what everyone was using the entities for, especially the parallax entity, was just, get your attack or damage up, and to use one power in particular. So definitely knowing like the entities and what powers they have on, what click and for how many clicks they have it is probably going to be the most essential homework for you in the upcoming months. I hate to say it like that. Yeah, it's just going to be that important. So you need to know like what clicks Ophidian has his outwit, and how's that correlate to your opponent's offensive or defensive capabilities. So let's go ahead and just like sort of briefly look at that real quick. And I will note today is going to be a lot shorter episode because, yeah, I've just been able to cram in most of what I wanted to talk about in these last few minutes. So here we go. So let's start off with the entity, the white layer entity. If you're noticing that they need barrier, then once you do 3 clicks to them, then they're pretty much done. 4, because you get that reach in. They're pretty much done. Barrier isn't coming back. So if they need energy explosion, then they have a whole different set of problems. If they're depending on energy explosion, primarily you're looking at clicks 1 and 2 for flow of life to just be healing up characters. So you're looking at a team primarily where they're just saying, I don't have Indomitable. My way of solving my pushing damage issue is I'm just going to heal up this character 1 click per turn. So I'm going to stay adjacent. I'm just going to heal up this character, and that's it. So there are some options there. Ophidian, sidestep. If you're using sidestep, you have different problems. The pulse wave definitely is good. The outwit, the desire of greed, Ophidian can use outwit when it does, it can use the counter power or ability for as long as it's countered. So this is really good. Now here's the thing: if you knock them, you just get them off that first click, bam, he doesn't have it. Then you have cosmic greed, you have barrier plasticity and quintessence, and you have to balance off which is more dangerous to you, quintessence or that outwit. But if you do 2 damage to them, then they have hypersonic speed, pulse wave, and shape change. And again, a team is going to determine what they're going to need. But if you realize like, okay, none of these things affect me right now, then you're golden. And most people don't think about that. Then there's parallax. And again, I'm only looking at the first few clicks because usually teams are based around the first few clicks. Parallax is a bigger problem because parallax gives us all 4 of his abilities are useful for his first 5 clicks. And that makes parallax a tough bear to counter because if my opponent is trying to make sure that whatever defensive ability that they have doesn't get countered, then definitely they're going to be looking at Cosmic Fear. Okay? Because Cosmic Fear just gives insurance. Then you add on the other reality that sort of sucks for certain players is that if they get on Invincible and you're not doing a lot of damage, then automatically that's a major problem. Psychic Blast is always good if you have that ranged combat attacker, but if you don't have that ranged combat attacker, then Psychic Blast isn't in play, then hypersonic speed. So overall, you can automatically start to see right there that there's some issues with what's going on. So Parallax is a tough one to crack, and you're almost at the point of you have to KO the character. Because once you get past 6 clicks, most characters are dead. But Parallax is that deep. And I think it's also due to the fact that he wasn't point costed appropriately when we look at the other entities, because he is so much more expensive than the other entities in points that he just stands head and shoulders above the rest. Then there's Adara. Adara gives us prob. Prob and defend. And I hate to say it like this, if you're going to see people use a Dara, it's going to be primarily for defend. The prob is secondary. The TK is way tertiary than to anything else. Even with Surge of Hope, I don't see many people building around that quite yet. So overall, for the first entities out the gate, we can see quite quickly what people are trying to do. And even with the Dara, you have 4 clicks of defend. If you're going to get 4 clicks through, then that team falls apart. No more defend train with Despotellis. But Despotellis is dead, actually, so never mind. So there are a bunch of different elements that we just need to be mindful of. Definitely, because no one's going just to attach an entity to say, bam, I have an entity. But what they are going to say is, I have an entity, therefore I need to do this. So, yeah. So, that's mostly it. I've had some interesting play with the power battery. Definitely now, I think they said it was ruled you can just put it down anywhere, and wherever you put it at the beginning of the game is clear terrain. So, I actually like that. So, it allows for certain setups. But, yeah, I think this is going to be interesting how this goes down Yeah, I just think it's going to be interesting how this goes down here in the next couple of weeks with major tournaments and stuff. So, yep, that's it. Sorry for the short show, but definitely let me know if you want to hear, full hour-long Starting Over podcast, or do you want me to do another episode of Topography? And what I'm going to do, just to sort of ramp up the Twitter interaction, all votes will be counted on Twitter. So, definitely by sometime before I record next, it will be determined if it's going to be Topography or just Starting Over podcast. With that being said, you can follow me on Twitter. It came from outer space and told me, man, you need to not try to record a podcast before you have to be at work. You can check my random musings whenever I put it up. And definitely you will know when the show is up. Also, if you want to know when the show is up, hit subscribe. I do appreciate it. It helps a lot more than I thought. You can follow me. You can email me at startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. That's startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. If you wish to opine, keep it piffy, keep it interesting, keep it awesome, baby. You know how we do it. And last but not least, you can donate to the show on the blog at startingoverpodcast.blogspot.com. And whenever I can put up a blog post, I will and can. So, that's it. Definitely having some fun play testing for Tulsa Rock. I do plan on going to that. And also, I did get some contact from a listener, Mr. Jason Alvey, telling me about his rock at Big Bang Toys and Comics, and I don't know where it's at. Hold up, I'm trying to bring it up. Just give me a moment. Oh yeah, my Facebook's crapped out. Definitely, it's on August 2nd, so look at that on the rock page. Pretty much what they're going to be doing is they're going to be using the Con in Your Store prize support to help add additional prize support for people to come out. So definitely check that out. All right, that's it. Thank you for listening, and remember, we all have to start over sometime.